Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Konstantin Korotkov from Russia, and today I want to discuss with you about life, energy, biological fields, and consciousness. And for this, I want to look to our screen. Okay, here we are. Okay, here we are. And now we discuss about science of measuring energy fields and the awakened mind. I am a professor of physics, biophysics for more than 25 years. And I work in different universities of St. Petersburg in Russia, and have a lot of activity in the world, lecturing, doing seminars, workshops. And we have very interesting moment in the time of our development. So we are living in 21st century, and we have tremendous transformation in this century. And this situation of this last 2 years with COVID demonstrate that it's really new, absolutely new type of life in the world. First of all, this transition from resource age to the information age. It means that in 21st century, in all previous centuries, it was important to produce some material stuff. And the most rich people was people who was able to produce something, to keep some treasures. Now, the most rich people who are producing information. So we transform to informational age. Then we now have old information network, and we are unable to exist without Google, without our phones, and we can be connected worldwide. And in principle, this is called consciousness network, because at any moment you can connect with any person in the world, and we can exchange consciousness, and we understand that we are not dependent on the color of our skin, of our age, of our gender. We are all the same. And now we're having new and new ways how we can derive energy, and energy is the basis of civilization. And of course, we are moving to the medicine of health. But today I want to discuss with you new trends in the study of consciousness. We have many conferences about this, many discussions, and the first question, what it is consciousness? Now we have tremendous movement when we try to meet together science and spirituality. And the main question is who we are. Are we clever monkeys or God beings? What is the aim of life? What is soul? What is happening after death? So those are many questions, and of course, the main question is, what is consciousness? Is it product of the brain, or it is part of the universal spirit? So we know that we are individual souls, and every one of us is individual being, and we are part of the one Gaia organism. So we can formulate this question very easy. Has God created brain, or brain created God? And the key scientific questions are, is consciousness a product of a brain? What is mystical experience? What are altered states of consciousness? Does consciousness exist without the body? What is near-death experience? Does consciousness exist after death? What are reincarnation memories? So we see that there are many scientific questions, and in our research we try to answer at least some of those questions. And now we have two concepts, two theories of consciousness. There's a classical theory that tells us that everything comes from neurons, from neuronal networks, same way as we have it in artificial intelligence. And that's why we have many discussions whether artificial intelligence would be as clever or much more clever than our brain, than our human consciousness, and would it be dangerous to a person? And now we have a lot of discussions about combining our human brain with different electronic devices. And of course, our mobile phone is the first example, but now we have a lot of discussions, a lot of science, a lot of research about implanting some electronic device in the human body, and in particular human brain. And we have another theories, quantum theories of consciousness, that gives us a much more deep understanding of this. And now one of the key topic that we have in quantum theories, I wouldn't come deep into discussion, those are a concept of non-locality, or Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen paradox. The topic is Einstein did not accept quantum theory. For him, it was too mechanistical. And he was able to create many paradoxes that was unable to be answered by that time. And one of the paradoxes was as follows. Let's imagine we have one quantum subject. It may be atom, it may be molecule, it may be any subject. And at some moment, this quantum subject emits two particles. It may be again photons or electrons. And those particles, they fly to different parts of the universe. And then at one part of the universe, something changed the quantum numbers of this particle. And in accordance with quantum mechanics, if those particles belong to one and the same quantum system, so they should have different quantum numbers. So if we change this, immediately should be changed another one. And Einstein told, this is nonsense. This is total paradox, because those particles may be in absolutely different parts of the world. And we know that it's impossible to have communications faster than the speed of light. So now we name those particles entangled particles. And it was demonstrated in experiments in Switzerland in 20th century that it is a real physical effect, quantum effect. So this is the basis of many quantum theories, quantum entanglement. And now we have a lot of research in this topic. Another question still, is brain, is it computer made of meat? So, or is it something else? And it was many discussions about this again, many topics about this, and many top-level scientists defended the idea of complexity of life. So many scientists like Schrödinger, Einstein, not about Newton, Bohr, and many others, and of course many neuroscientists, they believed and they claimed that life is much more than just mechanistical process. And now we have the way how we can study this. Now we have many research lines that can study brain in the process of some activity. And particularly it was a lot of measurements. In particular, it is very famous scientist in New York who was measuring activity of the brains of nuns, monks, people in deep meditation. And he was doing this with PET scan, which allows to see brain in its activity. And it was shown that all these mystical experiences, it's not just imagination, but it's a real transformation of the brain. And now we have many discussions about so-named spiritual brain. And of course, another question, very important question, can mind operate outside the brain? Can consciousness directly influence physical reality? And I want to show you a little movie which discuss about this.
Can humans find a time when they will allow space for what they don't believe is possible? For 300 years, science has asked the question, is there a field of energy that connects everything?
Where do our thoughts go when we die?
Someday, there will be inventions in physics, and when they do, you will see that consciousness is energy. What human beings think collectively can be measured.
You have hundreds of thousands of molecules. They can exchange vibrations all over around the field. This is chemistry, but it's a kind of dancing chemistry.
In consciousness, we can communicate and perceive anywhere throughout the entire universe.
Energy increased dramatically.
Distance does not matter.
The field is the origin of everything.
What is a thought? Thought is a particle of light. We can measure it.
Our thoughts are broadcast to the field.
What happens in one part of the field influences other parts of the field in the same instant. And this is deep, profound.
So this is a clip of a beautiful movie, The One Field, and you can find this movie somewhere on the internet. And we participated a lot in this movie, and I tell about this later on. But let's come back to consciousness and a very interesting topic that Einstein proposed his most famous equation, where he proved that energy and mass, they are equivalent. So mass is just condensed energy. And what does energy? Energy is our consciousness. What does mass? Mass is our body. And light, it is our soul. So this way we can talk about energy. And of course, when we talk about consciousness, the main one of the question is what's the difference between my consciousness and consciousness of my dog? Because I think that nobody would deny idea that dogs and cats, they have very developed consciousness. And I developed idea of the levels of consciousness, where on different levels of consciousness, there are different levels of understanding reality. And we can talk about group consciousness, we can talk about collective consciousness. And of course, we need to understand that this is all related to higher planes of reality. You can find discussion of those ideas in my books. So, and we understand, without light, there are no life. All living cells of plants, animals, and humans can continuously emit ultraviolet light, radiations, and we name this line is biophotonics. So, biophotons, this is the light within cells. And this is essential for cell communication. So it is increased cell energy. And it reflects different states of health and disease. So it was always those people who was able to feel and to understand and even see this light. And in many ancient icons, in many sculptures, ancient sculptures in different countries, in different regions, we see light, halo of light, or surrounding holy people. Now it's a part of scientific research, and we have big research line in this field. And again, I will show you one little clip. Okay, so now we discussed about biowell, and this line has long history from 18th century, and was many different researchers, interesting people who've been doing this in 19th century, 20th century. Between them, a very famous in 20th century became family Kirlian, who developed so named Kirlian photography. And by that time, all this light coming from different subjects in electromagnetic field was recorded by photography. It was very interesting, but of course it was not really very scientific. So we made computer jump, computer leap from Kirlian photography to computer processing. And we did it in 1995. And this was named as electrophotonic imaging, API, GDV, biophotonics, and this is all light diagnostics. So we are measuring light coming from fingers, all 10 fingers. Then we transform this image into different images of energy field around body, in different information, and we extract this information from every person. So we understand the principle of this. Very important to understand that this is quantum processes. So those processes based on activity of electrons, photons, and excitation of emission of photons by electromagnetic field. So we named it stimulated electrophotonic emission. And very important part of this, it is artificial intelligence. So we use image processing from this black and white image. We create this colorful image. We can study images of different subjects. For example, this image of water, this distilled water, and those are water under different pyramids. I have many patents in different countries, 15 patents, more than 2 scientific papers, and 10 books in 6 different languages. And you can find those books on Amazon.com. In some books, I discuss topics for people, for just lay people. In some books, they are more scientific. And you can find this all on our website, BioWell Technology. And the principle of this technology is that we make a bridge. We are using traditional Chinese medicine ideas of mediums. We are using Ayurvedic medicine, ideas of chakras, and we use ideas of Western medicine, systems, and organs. So we make a bridge between Western knowledge, Western understanding, and Oriental wisdom. And we have clear understanding what does it mean strong energy field. When you have strong field and it is correlated with strong immunity, and it means that you are protected from any intrusions, protected from viruses, and you may be not afraid of any coronavirus. And of course, chakras, when they are balanced, when they are aligned, of course, it is indication of very high concentration, very stable mental state of a person. And it may be done this line after some meditation, or for some people, I've seen this type of chakras, in particular for people who meditate a lot, of people who are doing yoga, and between many top-level business people. Health problem, they are reflected in different outbursts, in different holes, breaks, or just, and of course chakras in this case not so well balanced. Stress creates many holes, many breaks, and of course energy field is chakras is totally different as well. And we understand what does it mean, any shift of any chakra, and we can make interpretation of this. And stress may be even this type. But of course, it's not only pictures, those are a lot of numbers, a lot of measurements. And we are measuring level of stress, we are measuring energy, we're measuring balance, organs balance. And of course, we have big statistics. Now we have more than 1 million measurements on our database. And we understand what it is optimal for stress, for energy, and what does mean low energy, what does mean high energy. So very high energy is not always very good, and or same as very low stress. We can measure sympathetic, parasympathetic balance, and we have many correlation with measurements with HRV, heart rate variability, with skin conductivity, with psychological measurements. So it's a lot of data published in peer-reviewed journals. Very important that we can see transformation of person, of energy field, before and after any treatment. For example, before and after treatment, light treatment in this case, or before and after talking on the phone or deep meditation. Of course, people who have some health issues, they have absolutely totally different energy field. And again, we have very specific features of those energy fields. We have many our friends and customers all worldwide, on all continents. We have our main centers in Europe, in Hong Kong, United States, in St. Petersburg, Russia. We have our research centers, and we have many friends and dear colleagues worldwide. So we are having community of friends and colleagues who work with our system. And main areas of application of electrophotonic imaging, those are first of all medicine, and we have a lot of data in medicine. We can in the research they can make analysis of cancer with high level of precision using neural network. We have a lot of research in consciousness study, in sport. In Russia, this approach is accepted by the Ministry of Sport as one of the key method of analyzing athletes in Olympic teams, Paralympic teams, and we have many dissertations defended on this topic in medicine, in sport, in consciousness study. Next level is water and material testing. We have special installations for measuring water and materials, psychology, and energy of space. This year, we have developed a mobile version of our BioWell, and you see it is quite compact. You can keep it in your purse, and it operates with a mobile phone, with any type, Android or Apple iPhone, and so you can use it in everyday activity. And we just preparing production of this mobile version, and it will be ready by the end of the year. But this is not only measurements, it's some type of treatment as well. We are having this BioCore project, BioCore device. So we are measuring energy field. Based on this energy field, we create individual music, individual for every person. We apply this music to some special device, BioCore. This device emits very high frequency. So people have earphones with sound, very specific sound, and with frequency that emitted by a special electrode. And this is tremendously efficient transformation of human mental state. So we have hundreds and hundreds of cases when people claim that by using this BioCore device, they were able to get rid of insomnia, of depression, of anxiety, and it helped them to increase the quality of their life. So now we produce this device, and a lot of people use it in the world. And of course, by using this device, you can measure this and you can see the transformation of your energy field. But now let's go back to a consciousness study. We have several lines of consciousness study. So consciousness influence to physical sensors, consciousness influence to water, influence of people to each other, telepathy, direct vision or mental training, energy of active zones, and influence of active zones to people, energy transformation after death. So you see it is many different topics. And telepathy experiments has long history, because in Soviet time, I was involved in telepathy research in Soviet Union. And our goal was to establish telepathic communication between some people, between submarines and satellites. So we did many experiments of this kind, using many devices, and two people were sitting in different parts of the world, and we did not send messages, but people sent emotions to each other. And using different equipment, which they were wired with, it was possible to measure the influence of this process. So later on, in 21st century, we did many experiments in the mountains, in Nepal, in Venezuela, in different parts of the world. And it was shown that when people come to this interrelation, they have so-named virtual brain. So their brains are having same synchronized activity. It is a very interesting process. So it comes in telepathy. It is happening when people are in love. And we have many data on this topic as well. So it is a measurable process, and we can measure this dynamic of this process with our instruments, with BioWell. So it's all part of altered states of consciousness. And we have in our papers, we created a map of altered state of consciousness. And altered state of consciousness is not only people sitting in deep meditation or doing telepathy. Those are many cases in everyday life when people transform to altered state of consciousness. For example, mothers giving breastfeeding to their children, to their babies, they very often transform to altered state of consciousness. So this is the power of this process. And of course, we did many experiments with top-level healers. I was involved in this process from 1980s, with top-level healers in Russia, then worldwide, and it was possible to take measurements and to see that with their intention, those people can influence water, can influence sensors, and it is based on idea of triple manifestation of human being. So we have our physical body, we have our mind, and we have our soul. And this is the basis of all our concepts in consciousness study. Later on, in the 21st century, I was able to meet top-level healers in the world. And we did many experiments with Dr. Jody Spencer in the United States, Christos Darsinakis in Germany, Victor Filippi in Germany. And we've been able to measure their influence to hundreds of people. So all of them, they do workshops, and all of them, they have big groups of followers. And we were able to demonstrate that during their workshops, for all the people, stress level comes down and energy increases. And of course, if you look to chakras, then chakras become much more balanced. So we did many experiments, and there's a lot of data published on this topic. So we are measuring water, and we have special different installations to measure water. So people try to influence water from the distance. First experiment they can do nearby, then they can do it from different distance. And you see, this is intensity of initial water. And you see it's some dynamic line. So we're measuring in time, and we're measuring some parameters of light coming from water, some biophotons. And then we ask someone to send intention to this water from some distance, or for example, from Japan to Russia, or from United States to Russia, or from Germany to Russia, and we see effect. You see, it was before, and it is after. It's absolutely clear, statistically significant effect. Of course, it may be increase of energy, or it may be decrease of energy. It may be some transformation of energy. And it shows us that really, when we deal with water, we need to understand what is very sensitive subject. It has its own life, it has its own energy. And when we send our intention to water, if it's positive intention, it can give water positive impact. Would it be negative intention, then of course it may be absolutely negative effect. So when you're preparing food, be very careful in doing this. We did many experiments with a very famous researcher, Lynn McTaggart, who was able to organize, and she's doing it now from time to time as well, thousands of people worldwide. And at some particular moment, those people were sending their intention to, for example, our laboratory. And we can measure this effect. And in most of those experiments, we see statistically significant change. And it's not only water. We have special sensor. The name of this sensor is Sputnik. And I've been developing this sensor for many, many years, for decades. Now it is well developed. Now we can find a lot of information on this website, biowell.com. And the principle of this operation is based on so-named Tesla coils. So we have so-named Tesla coil in our instrument, and we have open contour of the second coil. And when we apply some impulse, some voltage to this coil, then here we have electromagnetic wave. So those are standing electromagnetic waves distributed in space, because we apply these impulses in short impulses, And that's why it's not just continuous emission, but it's standing waves. Then let's imagine that we have someone in this room. We are conductive subjects, and we are changing this condition in this room. So when we have, for example, emotions, we change our conductivity, we change condition of our blood circulation, microcirculation, and it influences ourselves and it influences space around ourselves. So all people influence space around themselves. And of course, it may be one people or it may be a group of people. And of course, this would be recorded. This would be reflected to the signal of Sputnik device. So that's why we are measuring before and after, and we see really strong transformation. We did these measurements from distance, time distance. Usually, typically we take some measurements before, for at least 1 hour or even more, and then we see clear transformation during intention. So this device, this Sputnik device, people now use in their everyday activity for recording their own meditation, for recording their emotions, and later on we'll discuss about the influence of different places. We did many experiments with top-level healers in the world. For example, this is Dr. Eric Pearl from the United States. He's very famous. And of course, by his influence, we immediately see transformation of energy field. And with Sputnik, we can detect his influence on a big group of people. This is a record of 8 hours workshop. And you see it was different events, different transformation of up and down. But then Eric came in to the audience. He's a fantastic presenter. And he was able to start his presentation. And you see this transformation of energy. So we did many experiments with him, and it is reflected in our book that we did together with Professor Gary Schwartz, Professor William Tiller, who did their own measurements, and we're discussing all these topics in those books, same as, for example, Joe Dispenza, Dr. Joe Dispenza discuss this in his own books. We can measure, for example, influence of music. And I was able to take measurement of top-level singers in the world. And this is Dmitry Khrostovsky, who is singing with top-level singers. And we were able to measure all moments of this presentation. And we did many experiments of this kind. So we were able to take all those measurements. And of course, it's not only interesting effect. So this is measurement of very famous opera conductor before and after the symphony. And you see it was his initial energy field and it's after. You see, so it's clear that this activity is not very simple, but at the same time, we know that for opera conductor, they have the highest lifespan in the world, the highest. And of course, we are measuring influence of rock music. And we found that under the influence of rock music, it's always transformation of energy field, some increase in the beginning, but then inevitably decrease. For me, this increase may be for 2 minutes, then it can decrease with rock music. For young children, of course, for young people, it may be for many days. So we did many measurements in Russian temples, in many temples of the world, nearby top-level icons, and we were able to see effect. This is measurement nearby icon, and this is in this same temple in different parts of the temple. I was able to take measurements in different cemeteries, and again, it was shown that energy For example, in temples and in cemetery, it has absolutely different character. So the energy on cemeteries, these are much more energetic, but at the same time, it is much more dangerous for people. You can find a lot of discussion in about this topic in my books, in particular in the book The Energy of Consciousness. And of course, one very important part of our activity is measuring effect of mobile phones, of electromagnetic fields, of different protection devices to people. And we do a lot of measurements of this kind, a lot. And it was really shown that it's really very important part. Very interesting topic. This is measuring energy after death, because this is one of the topic that is very, very important for all of us and for all of us. And I did a series of experiments of this kind, and I want for you to see a little clip. Oh, sorry, it doesn't show up. Okay, it doesn't matter. No. Okay, no problem. So I did many experiments with dead bodies, and we were able to select dead bodies immediately after death. And we took their hands, their fingers, placed on the electrode, and we've been doing measurements for many days, day and night for 24 hours. So we had a team of doctors, medical professionals, who did this type of measurements. And it was shown that immediately after death, of course, we have some transformation of energy field. But what was very important, that this transformation depends on the type of death. So when people come to death in very calm, senile condition, then they have very stable process of dying. When it is some unusual death, unpredictable death, of course, it's totally big difference. And the most interesting was cases when it was murder, suffocation, when people was able to see their death state coming, but they had clear understanding that they are dying, but it was unevitable. And in this case, we had transformation of their energy for days and days. We had a very strong increase of energy at night. And of course, we associated this with existence of some spirits. And in some cases, we were able even to feel those spirits. So it's clear that transformation to after death process, it's not just end of everything, but it's threshold. It is transition to absolutely different state. And we have a lot of topics that give us indication that this transition is not that simple. And you can find a lot of ideas of this kind in my book, Light Afterlife. Another very important topic of our activity is measuring energy of space, or geoactive zones, historical monuments. We are based on idea of 5 elements of nature. We are using our Sputnik device. And with this Sputnik device, we can measure a lot of processes. For example, we can measure sun eclipse, and we did many measurements of this kind, and it's possible to detect the sun eclipse. We are measuring different ceremonies. For example, we had ceremonies at the lakes with Dr. Imota, and we were able to measure all moments of this ceremony. We've been doing measurements at far north of Russia, when we have monasteries, big monasteries, with many monks. And we have little islands with ancient spirals. So it was found that the spirals come to Celtic times. And it is possible to take measurements because it's absolutely deserted island. And it was possible to see that inside the spiral, energy is totally different from outside. And all the people who was inside the spirals, they had totally different energy from people who was outside the spirals. So it's clear that all these spirals, all these Celtic monuments, those are not just some tribal superstition, but it is real places of strong energy. And ancient people was able to feel those energy. And we had many experiments of this kind. We had expeditions to far part of Venezuela and the border of Brazil, when there are only Indians living, and we had to come through jungles, camping for several days. Then finally we came to very high wall, so named Roraima wall. And at the top of this wall, this is absolutely unusual situation, unusual vegetation. And local Indian, they believe that this is the mother of water. And this at the top of this Roraima. And of course, I did measurements in Savannah and the top of Roraima, and it was shown that it's totally different energy, down and the top. And of course, it had influence on people as well, the human energy field. So it is energy before and after. Before and after. And for all members of our expedition, it was a really big change of this energy. Then it was very interesting expedition to Indians of Colombia, Sierra Nevada mountains. Because those Indians, they keep their tribal life as they did for thousands of years. There are practically no road to come there, and it's really a big challenge to come there. But finally, you are coming to beautiful valleys where the people live who are very calm, very nice people. They don't allow for foreigners to come there, so it's very difficult to come there. And they allowed us to come, and we did those measurements in this village with many people. So energy was very beautiful, very calm over there, all in different parts of this village. But it was one stone when their elders accept energy from the space, from the universe. And at this particular place, energy was totally different. So it was really beautiful. I did measurements with crop circles in England, and we were able to come there with Lucy Pringle, very famous researcher, just at the moment on Saturday when this crop circle was formed on Friday. And it was shown that the energy outside and inside the crop circle those are totally different. So it was many experiments with, for example, Peru, with shamans. It was shown that again, it is strong transformation of images of energy with shamans, with, and I have many data in my book, with Bosnian pyramids, Dr. Sam Asmanagic. It's interesting, fantastic discovery of this famous archaeologist. He found great pyramids and he found tunnels under those pyramids. And again, we were able to take measurements of all these events. So it is a lot of different experiments, a lot of different activity. So we have many people who are involved in this activity. Every year, we have our big Congress, Science, Information, Spirit, in St. Petersburg. It is first weekend of July. And last year, this Congress comes in Zoom, of course. And it is absolutely open, so we invite everybody to join this activity.